Spring is right around the corner and Pretty Pink Posh has a huge release of spring flowers, spring holidays like Easter and Mother's Day, and more. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video I'll be sharing the entire March release from Pretty Pink Posh. This includes spring-inspired stamps, dies, stencils, foil plates, and embellishments. That is a lot, so let's jump right into the card making and I'll share those new supplies along the way. Let's start with the Flower Garden stamps and dies. This is a very sweet set. I love the little wellies, the water can, there's a spade and a flower pot that you can fill with flowers and some pretty sentiments. So I stamped and colored a bunch of those and we're going to add them to the Scallop box card dies. This is a very easy box card to put together. You are going to cut out one of these large pieces and several of these smaller rectangular pieces. And you can decide 1, 2, or 3 for the rectangles. I started with 2 and then I ended up doing 3 because I loved how easy it was to apply. There are these scallop pieces that can decorate the outsides or insides or both of that die set. So you can see that there are dashed lines. Those are score lines where you can fold that main piece together so that the flaps turn in, and that will create the base of the box card. Now for the rectangular pieces, there are flaps on each side. I'm going to use score tape so that it will really stay put, because you definitely want to use a strong tape like that. And for the first time that I created a box card, I definitely didn't know exactly what I was doing, so I was just trying it out. I had both sides removed of the top protective layer of the score tape, and I basically just folded it into place inside the main piece of that box. But in the next box card, I'll show you a much easier way to do this. This is the Easter Sentiments Stamps and Dies, some really pretty sentiments. You may have seen me use Pretty Pink Posh sentiment sets before. They are great for inside cards, and the dies create a little tag that you can use for outside or inside a card. So I am going to use one of those sentiments on that same blue cardstock that I'm using for the box card to decorate it, and I'm going to create the front panel with that sentiment. And I have another panel for a midline panel as well. So I'm going to have 3 panels on this card, and this is where I didn't do it correctly. I just kind of folded it in there. Again, I'm holding it open and trying to place it straight, and that's where I kind of mess up. You'll just see that the center panel is a little offline, but because you can flatten it to put it into an envelope, there's a much easier way to do this that I should have figured out from the beginning, but I didn't. So you get to learn from my mistakes. Next, I have the little flower pot that I colored, and I'm going to fill it with a bunch of different flowers from that stamp set. There are leaves as well. It's very simple to just use some liquid glue and pile those all together, and then some liquid glue to adhere that to the front of the box card. So we are definitely starting to see how this is going to come together. I have that wheelbarrow and a bunch of flowers in the back, and now I have the mom mother shadow dies and foil plates. So as in previous releases, the foil plates can be cut out with the shadow dies, which is great because then you don't have to get your foiling perfect onto your card. You can foil it as many times as you need to get it right and then die cut it out. A good way to get it as good as you can get is to use some pixie tape to hold that foil in place on some ultra smooth cardstock. I like to use Hammermill, and use your plates to then fold it in place after you pull out that platform. So you can see I got a little overfoiling on this one, but it's okay because when you die cut it out, you won't see it. And here I got these absolutely perfect. So we're going to use that gold mom for the sentiment. And again, both the mother and the mom have shadow dies that can cut them out, which is really pretty. They just look so nice and would be such a nice touch for a Mother's Day card. And I also love that pearlescent foil from Spellbinders. Put a little bit of liquid glue at the bottom of the golden mom, and I have that in the center panel of the box card. So we have the sentiment up front that says have a lovely day. We have different elements on different panels of the box card and the gold mom sentiment in the middle. So what I like to do is put these little pieces together first, the same way I did the flower pot, and then adhere them into the box card. And isn't that just the sweetest thing? I decided to cut some more of those scallop pieces so that I could cover up the back and the outside panels. So this is something that I learned doing it the first time. I wanted those covered as well, just to make the whole card look consistent and come together. Once everything's dry, you can fold it flat and it can be placed inside an envelope. I still had everything drying, so I didn't want to do that and risk getting anything stuck together there, but you can see how cute this is, and it was so easy to put together. This is the Spring Chicks Stamps and Dies. I loved that box card so much that I wanted to make another one. This little set has some Easter images as well as just some spring and rain images and a couple of sweet sentiments. Again, I have my box card cut out, and I've cut out the panels with the scallops are going to be green on the sides and on the panels, and then on the large arch it's going to be blue. So this is going to mimic a sky background and then grass in the front. And I learned my lesson and I cut double of everything so that I could cover both sides of the panels and that arch. I'm going to stamp my sentiment with some blue ink on that blue cardstock. It says "You're so tweet," and then just adhere that down to that shadow box. So it's easiest if you do your stamping first, if you can remember, and definitely it will make your life a lot easier if you adhere the panels this way. So you just do one side of the panels on one side of that box. I'm not even taking off the second side of the release tapes, and you can line these up as you're going. So one will be at the top, one will be in the center, and one will be flush to the bottom of that side. That will give those panels different heights, which will allow you to have images at different heights as well. So you can see, just line up that tab on the side with the panel on the front there. Now that we have that done, now you can remove the other side of the protective layers and lay it flat. If you lay it flat like you would lay it in a card, one at a time, and then lay the panel down on top, you can make sure everything is straight before you fold it into place. And that makes this so much easier, and you can get the perfect alignment that way. For this card, I am using the rain images with the chicks, and I'm going to have umbrellas, chicks, puddles, all kinds of things like that. So this is just more of a spring card. You could definitely do an Easter card with this as well, with the little Easter eggs, and I have those saved for later. I love that little cloud, and the raindrops can be die cut as well. That is the great thing about having dies for all these little images, is you can pop them onto this box card to create that dimensional, fun, interactive looking card. These are the Layered Umbrellas stencils. It's a 4-pack of stencils. These are very easy to line up. To make it even easier, I usually cut a 6x6 piece of white cardstock so that I can adhere it right behind the stencil. It will line up perfectly with the stencil, and then I'll be able to line the second, third, and fourth stencil up right on top. For these umbrellas, you can use any inks that you have. I love using Distress Oxide inks, and one of my favorite color combinations is saltwater taffy and salvaged patina. So you can use brushes, you can use foam, you can use whatever kind of applicators you like. I tend to really like, for the smaller parts of the images, these smaller shader brushes because then I don't have to cover up the entire stencil with ink, which saves me both ink and time, less cleaning of that stencil because the whole thing is not just covered with ink. And these umbrellas are just so super cute. I have a very tiny little brush for the very top of those umbrellas. It's just kind of that point where it all connects at the very top of the umbrella, and also the handles. And again, if I was using a big brush, I would have to cover this entire stencil with black ink, and that could really just be a mess. So I like using those smaller brushes for those smaller elements. But if I know I'm going to cover the entire thing and there's lots of things to cover up with ink, then I will use a larger brush and it just makes it go more quickly. So you can see there's rain and these cute little patterned umbrellas. They make a great backdrop for the umbrella shaker dies. Now, as the name suggests, you can use this to make a shaker card, but I've decided to just use it as a flat die cut. So I cut out the individual pieces of the umbrella and the main umbrella piece, and I'm going to have those in 2 different colors so that they really just kind of stand out and look so much fun together. And I tried to pick colors that were close to the colors that I used in the background. I think the cardstock I used is a little bit greener. That's okay. You can put the umbrella the way you normally would hold it, or you can flip it over and there are these little flower and heart dies that come in the set. Now those could be shaker goodies for inside the shaker card if you're making one of those. I decided to fill up my umbrella with those little hearts and flowers, and the flowers cut out the centers. So I just swapped colors. I used blue centers on yellow flowers and yellow centers on blue flowers. These are the Happy Spring Shadow dies. So you get 2 word dies and 2 shadows. And I love having both of those. If you have these skinny little word dies, it can be hard to pop them up. But if you put them onto a shadow die, you can pop it up, or it just stands out, I think, a little bit better. I did cut the Happy Spring out of gold mirror cardstock, and to put the dot of the eye in place, I popped the negative piece that still has the dot attached to it over the die cut, and I've put a little bit of liquid adhesive there, and then I just use something to poke the dot into place. That's just a really easy way to do that. I cut the panel down to 4 by 5 1/4 so that I could mat it on some coordinating color of cardstock, and then just a little bit of white gel pen detail and a little bit of marker detail on those hearts. I think it really helps them stand out from the background. This is the Layered Easter Floral Stencils. It's a 4-pack of stencils. This is a sweet background that you can create, and you can definitely use a ton of Easter colors on it. These are the elements from the Easter Sentiment stamp set. I'm going to stamp those, color those in, and use them on top of this background. So I have Kitsch Flamingo for the bunnies, and there are so many little flower elements and Easter eggs on this second layer that I'm using those smaller brushes so that I can have a number of colors. I have, again, the saltwater taffy, the Kitsch Flamingo, I have some tumbled glass and milled lavender and spun sugar, and even some orange as well, some dried marigold. And when you peel off the pixie tape, which is what I use to keep the stencil in place on the cardstock, you just see how quickly a multicolored image can really come together. So the next stencil has the stems and leaves for the flowers. It also has some details for those Easter eggs. So really you can have so many different colors on one background, and as long as you're kind of staying in that Easter realm of those lighter pastels and maybe just putting a few pops of those darker colors, I think it all really works together. Once the background was fully stenciled, I could tell what colors I wanted to use to color in those Easter sentiment images. Super, super cute. There's a little sheep, a couple of Easter eggs, flowers, and an adorable bunny that looks similar to the bunnies on the stencil. This bunny that you color in just has a little bit more detail to it, so I thought that the bunny would be perfect. I love all the dies that you can use, so you can pop these characters up. And I did use one of the sentiments. It says Happy Easter on that tag or label die that came with the set. I'm going to pop that up on some foam tape. I have the panel cut down to 4 by 5 1/4 and matted on white cardstock. Then you can have fun decorating. You can just use whatever little images you want and any combination thereof, little flowers, a little bunny, and a little Easter egg to finish this card off. This is the Leafy Spring Wreath Stamps and Dies. Now you get this wreath, a bow, flowers, birds, Easter eggs, and a couple of greetings. I coat this cardstock with some anti-static powder tool and stamp everything in the stamp set with some Versamark ink and then pour gold embossing powder on top. And once that is fully covered up, I'm going to heat set that. So you can see that all of these images are going to be heat embossed with gold embossing powder. I've decided for this card, instead of coloring with alcohol markers, I'm going to use those blender brushes to color in the images inside the gold embossing powder. So usually with alcohol markers, you don't want to color inside an embossed image because little elements from the embossing powder can get up inside the tip of your marker and cause it not to work as well. But for ink blending, you can do that right on top of an embossed image, and that embossing will resist the ink, which is really nice. You can, with these detail brushes, you can get pretty detailed on these leaves where you can then add dimension and shading by adding slightly darker elements to different portions of the wreath. And then for the smallest images, I just cover them up with ink. Yes, when you die cut them, there'll be a little haze of that color outside the die cut. I think that's okay. I actually like that look for this type of card. You can even use a teeny tiny little brush to create different colors for the centers of those flowers. And then hold all the dies in place with pixie tape, run them through the die cut machine, and cut them all out. I really love this scallop square frame from Pretty Pink Posh, so I cut it out twice just to add it a little bit of dimension to it, and then just put a little tape runner behind it and adhere it down to an A2 card that is a pink color cardstock, and then foam tape behind the wreath to pop it up. It fits perfectly inside that little scallop frame there. I have some foam tape on the center of this spring die cut because I wanted the sides to sit on the wreath, but I didn't want the middle to arc downwards. Here again, you get to have fun just decorating your wreath with whatever you choose. Could be filled with flowers, could be filled with Easter eggs. I did a little bit of everything and then even added some flower garden clay confetti for a couple of the flowers and the secondary sentiment that says Easter greetings right on the wreath. This is the layered carrot stencils. This is a 3-pack of stencils. You get the carrot top, and then a carrot detail. So starting with a lighter orange in the background, again, I'm using dried marigold distress oxide ink, and this time I'm using a brush to just go over the entire card front because they're all going to be one color. I'm not going to do 2 different colors of carrot tops or carrots. The carrot tops, I use Mode Lawn Distress Oxide ink, and then finally a little bit of carved pumpkin for the details. Now for this one, I already had a smaller brush that had carved pumpkin on it, so I just went over each and every carrot with a little swipe of ink, and it did not take me that long, and I was able to save some ink that way. And look at how cute those carrots are. This is the Easter Mug Editions dies. I mentioned before that I love Editions dies. If you get the original mug dies, then you can get all these edition dies, and it really makes that original die set worth so much more because you can use it throughout the year at different times. So there was a birthday edition, there was a Valentine's edition, just so many abilities to use that original die set in different ways. So I'm going to show you 2 of the ways that you can use the Easter editions dies, but there are several ways that you can use this, and you will see more videos coming up soon, especially on the Pretty Pink Posh YouTube channel, showing how to use these mug editions dies in different ways. So for this time, I'm creating a bunny rabbit mug. Super, super cute. You have all the little images there. So there's little eyes, nose, mouth, and bow tie. There are ears that can be layered with 2 different colors. Everything is thought out so well, so many little details. They're so easy to put together. And you can see that little carrot up in the left-hand side of the screen. It's also got a carrot top. And those were all the dies from that Mug Editions die set. So I used a wonky rectangle of blue just so that the bunny rabbit could kind of pop off the background of those carrots in the background. I'm going to use the Easter Wishes shadow dies to create the sentiment. And again, these are very beautiful script words with a shadow die, making it really stand out from the rest of your card. We did have to pop that little eye in place, just like I showed you before. And I did pop these up on foam tape so that they stood out a little bit and you could still see the bunny rabbit and the carrot and all of that in the background. So cute. And like I said, this mug has so many different ways that you can use it. These are the layered chick stencils. These are a 4-pack of stencils. So you can do all of the chicks in one color. You can do the wings in another color and the beaks and legs in kind of an orange color. There's also half eggshells, so I did half of those in Kitsch Flamingo and half of those in tumbled glass. And then there are little eyes. Again, I used the black soot Distress Oxide ink and that tiny little shader brush. Look at how cute those chicks are. Aren't they adorable? And it just comes together in a matter of minutes because all I did was ink blending over top. So here's the other mug that you can create. I mean, there are many other mugs, but here's one of the other mugs that you can create. And this one is a little chick. So this oval is kind of the little chick belly at the bottom of the mug. You can see I've cut out some Easter eggs. I've cut out a feather. There are 2 little feet that go down below and that little feather on top. There's also eyes, nose, beak, beak and cheeks that you can cut out and place on the mug. These are so much fun to play with. They are so much fun to decorate. They look so cute and they come together really quickly. I cut the panel down to 4 by 5 1/4 and I'm matting it on some orange cardstock. Pop up that mug so that it stands out from the back of those chicks. I have the sentiment that says Easter greetings from that Leafy Wreath stamp set, and I like to use the VersaFine Black Onyx ink if I have to stamp over any Distress Oxide. For some reason, a lot of black inks get kind of hazy when you stamp on top of Distress Oxide, but that one does really well. And a couple of Easter eggs to decorate the sides of that mug. This is the Spring Jar Stamps and Dies. You get the jar, you get the label, a little bow, and then there's so many different elements that you can place inside the jar, next to the jar, around the jar, all of that. You can stamp any of the tiny sentiments that come in the stamp set on the label for the jar, and there are dies to cut everything out just like they are in all of their stamp sets. I also decided to cut out a piece of acetate with the same die that I cut out the colored in jar, and then use a little bit of Copic marker to just color the acetate jar just a little bit so it has a haze to it. This way, when you put it in front of whatever you're putting inside the jar, it looks like it's truly inside a jar. It's both shiny and it's got a little hint or haze of color to it, which makes it really easy instead of having to color those eggs with a little haze of blue or something on top to make them look like they're inside glass. That's just a really, I think, easy way to do this. Then I'm going to place the label of the jar outside that says Happy Easter and pop up the jar on a wonky rectangle. It's got stitching around it, which makes it really cute. Pop that all up on an A2 white background. You can see there's a bee, a butterfly, a little spider, a ladybug. So many fun elements in this set to color in and place inside or outside that jar. I don't know about you, but I love seeing all these fresh new designs for spring. If something caught your eye, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. If you haven't seen my video from last month's Pretty Pink Posh release, it was all birthday themed and I think you'll really enjoy it. Check it out here. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. When I do this and then like no words come out, it's pretty funny. Pretty Pink, the entire Pretty Pink Posh spring in style, it's in styled. Oh, and embellishments.